it isn't obvious at all that children and adolescents are spending the bulk of their time on social media per se. Depends on how you define it. So they're also texting instead of interacting face to face, for example. And then they're also exposing themselves to other content online like pornography. But then there's something more fundamental, I think, that's often missed, which is that, see, when we had little kids back in the 90s, my wife and I were the youngest parents we knew with the oldest kids, even though we weren't that young. We didn't start having kids till we were in our late 20s. Now, one of the things that would happen was that we would take our kids over to other houses that had children. And when we got there, the parents would put on a television show for the kids to watch, which I was never happy with, because what should have happened was the kids were thrown into the basement, so to speak, and they with nothing to do, so that they had to play. And so they could watch TV, and of course they were quiet if they were doing that, but they weren't inventing their own dramas. They weren't interacting face to face in a manner that made them come up with the creative conceptualizations that characterize dramatic play, like playing house, for example, that lay the bloody groundwork for future adult relationships. Now, and that was TV. That had nothing on screens, because everyone was concerned about the detrimental effect of TV back then. But my God, now, screens are absolutely everywhere. So the screens have content, but they also interfere with child's play. And so I'd like your opinion about that. And also one other thing that I've been thinking about. Tell me what you think about this. I watch all these strange identity issues that are emerging in adolescence and even on university campuses in early adulthood. This preoccupation with sexual identity, with gender identity, and also the variant forms of even more imaginative play that are associated with that, like the furry culture, for example, and the anime culture. And what I see there is delayed dramatic play. Right. So I'm wondering if what's happening to some of these kids is that they get away from this oppressive family environment where they're never allowed any freedom. They burst out at, say, the age of 17 or 18, and then they have to frenetically engage in a dramatic search for identity because they didn't do it when they were like 3, which is when it really needs to happen. We radically underestimate the significance of dramatic play. Then we have dramatic play on the part of rebellious adolescents constantly, as they protest in the streets.
That's right, 100%. I've spoken with Jonathan Haidt and others, and I've really been kind of engaged in the discourse about the role of social media, and how that plays into the development of emotional regulation. You're right. How do we define that? But I think your point about, it's basically more broadly than just whether they're on TikTok or whether they're on Facebook or whether they're, on Snapchat. It's looking at a screen rather than at another face. And you see that wherever you go. I mean, even when I do work on a supermarket deli now on a part-time basis, customers will come in, they'll be looking at their phone, or I'll be trying to look at my phone. And it's a completely different world and landscape that we're now in that has sort of taken away the normal face-to-face communicative, rough and tumble play where you're actually physically looking at somebody rather than at a screen, or your attention is not constantly looking at a screen. So it's much more broader. And I think the other point too, you said, well, it's not just social media. You're right. It's social media combined with